Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Michaud. I'm a member of the digital learning team with Anglophone School District West. I want to welcome everyone to the LEARNEast 2021 session that's called Learning Management Applications Teams 200. We want to welcome. Want to welcome Tino Soares as our presenter today. I want to thank him for him taking time to share his experiences and expertise with us. Just a reminder to check and make sure your mics are closed. If anyone's mics are on, I can turn them off as well. You may leave your video on if you wish. If you have any questions during the session, please add them in the meeting text chat window, and our presenters will answer them at the conclusion of the session. So without any further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Tino.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that introduction. And hello, everybody. Welcome to your Microsoft Teams for Education Level 200 today. We are going to be covering quite a bit, so let's go ahead and get started. There are a couple of little housekeeping tasks that I did want to take care of before we jump into our content for today. So as Mark mentioned, it would be great if for the duration of the presentation that you just remain on mute. The mute button is just at the top right-hand corner of your screen. It does look like everybody right now is muted, so I'm going to go ahead and safely assume you know where it is, but just in case, it is at the top right-hand corner there, just for the duration. And then at the end of our session today, we will have some time set aside where you can perhaps come off of mute to ask any questions if you'd like. And as Mark mentioned as well, there is also the meeting chat. So if you do have a question as we're going through the content today, click on that little speech bubble icon there, and it'll open up the chat on the right-hand side if it's not already opened up there. I do have with me my colleague Tim, who will be acting as our moderator today, and he will be answering any questions and interacting with you in the chat there as we move through our presentation today. My name is Agustin Soares. You can call me Tino, as Mark graciously has, and I will be your Microsoft trainer for today. I'll essentially be acting as your digital guide as we move through and explore Teams. So here's a little bit of an agenda of what we'll actually be covering a little more specifically. We'll be taking a look at just a little intro to Teams for Education at the start here, and then we'll be moving right into the Teams application in our live demonstration and starting off with some advanced features. And then we'll move into actually managing your class teams and your class notebooks. And then I'll be closing off today with taking a look at the Teams meeting life cycle. So that's kind of our general sort of direction we'll be going today. And then, of course, at the end, we do have that Q&A where, again, if there was anything that went unanswered in the chat, or if you have any new questions, we can tackle those during that little period at the end there. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Microsoft Teams for Education here. So Microsoft Teams is your digital hub for teaching, learning, and collaboration across your whole institution. It is part of the Microsoft 365 Education portal, which also includes familiar productivity apps like OneNote and Word, for example. Teams brings conversations, content, and apps together into one place, streamlining your workflow for administrators and allowing teachers to create vibrant, personalized learning environments in the form of class teams. With Teams, you can create collaborative classrooms, personalized learning with assignments, for example, and connect with colleagues in professional learning communities, or PLCs. And this can help, of course, streamline staff communication. Teams does support teacher-to-teacher collaboration as well as class collaboration. So you can collaborate with your own colleagues as teachers, and you can also utilize Teams to collaborate with your students as well. And they, of course, can use it to collaborate amongst themselves. This single solution can help with educators' administrative and classroom tasks. It can save you time, and it can really help teach your students future-ready skills. Because Teams for Education is designed for education, it has built-in Teams types of a couple of different categories here. We have classes, educator working groups, and school administration. These Teams types each have different and appropriate default permissions, features, and content to make it easy to get started, and all of them are highly customizable. Today we will only be looking at the class teams for the most part. However, a lot of the administrative settings in terms of what you can adjust and what you can change is mostly the same across all of them. So we'll be taking a look at the settings today mostly. So it'll be similar for no matter which kind of team you actually do end up creating. Within your class teams, you also have the collaborative space that utilizes OneNote. So the question of where to keep curriculum, assessments, planning documents, communication resources, and perhaps even lesson plans can be challenging. So your class teams has two main solutions for you as an educator. You have a class materials section within your class notebook, as well as the actual class notebook itself. And the class notebook is the shared hub for class content and can be integrated with assignments, grades, and multiple apps for education. The class notebook also contains different sections which each serve a specific purpose. So for example, in the class notebook, you'll have the collaboration space, which is where everybody can come and sort of contribute to one space with different content. And then each student will actually have their own little private space within the class notebook that they can do their own work. And the same goes for the educator or teacher. There is a sort of teacher-only space within the class notebook where you can work privately and prepare any potential class materials that will be going out later on down the line. Within Teams, you also have the ability to utilize Teams meetings, of course, and this allows you to connect with your students in a sort of digital meeting form, pretty much identical to what we're doing right now. So with the meetings, there are a number of different things enabled that can help you host engaging and inclusive meetings. These things range from the ability to turn on together mode, for example. As you're seeing right in, I'm circling it right now with my mouse, there is that this little top left box here that contains what together mode looks like. And together mode is sort of a little, oh, apologies. I have a little bit of a cough today. The Together mode is a setting that you can enable in your Teams meeting after you've met a certain amount of people in that meeting. I believe it's 5 or more. And once you do that, it puts everybody into sort of a digital space together. So rather than everybody having their own sort of little box within the Teams window, you'll all be put into a digital space together. And this can help you feel more, closer given the digital space, as well as it can feel a little more interesting and engaging as well to see everybody in a digital space like that. You can also personalize your own background within the Teams meeting as well. You can either upload your own if you have a background that you want to use, or you can just use the predetermined ones that have been given by Teams, like the classic blur, as well as some other images that are presented there. Within Teams meetings, you also have the ability to share content. This includes sharing your screen. And again, that is exactly what I'm doing for you all today. I'm sharing my screen so that you can see, everything that I'm doing on my screen, all the windows that I'll be opening, etc. You can share your screen, you can share a specific window, and you can also share content, meaning you can present a PowerPoint live and you can sort of walk through the presentation as you normally would. And you can also utilize things like the whiteboard to collaborate on that whiteboard together during the meeting. We will be taking a look at all these things later on down the line once we actually demonstrate the Teams meeting sort of process near the end of our session today. Another thing that is available to you within your Teams environment, your class Teams, are the ability to create assignments and grade them as well. We'll be taking a brief look at these in our session today. However, this isn't covered too much here, as it's covered mostly in the Teams 100. But this is still a little point that I always like to mention, just because, of course, if you have a class team, you'll most likely be utilizing the assignments and gradebook features in one way or another. So we'll take a brief look at that today as well. And with that being said, we are going to go ahead and jump into the demonstration now. Just give me 1 second as I move over, as I switch my screens here. And while I do that, I will remind everybody that the chat is available to you. So if you have any questions or anything that you would like to have covered, or anything that you'd like to discuss, please do so in the chat there. And I do have with me my colleague Tim, who will be taking a look at those messages as they come in. So I'm going to go ahead and re-share my screen here. All right. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead, and the first thing that we're going to want to do, of course, is access the Teams application. So we're going to be utilizing the desktop application today. That is where we will be doing the bulk of our demo from. So I'm going to go ahead and just open that up now. And this is our Teams application. Now, I'm going to do a brief little refresher on the interface and sort of what's going on with our Teams environment here, just so that we get we refamiliarize ourselves with what we can do within Teams and kind of where everything is. So in the top right-hand corner, we have the area where we can manage our profile settings. So this is what I like to call a profile bubble. If you click into that, you'll view both your team's identity, of course, as well as the image that you have assigned to yourself. Now, today, I am logged in as Kara Coleman. That is who I'll be acting as today. Anytime you see Kara across this Teams demo, just know that that is me. In any case, so we're logged in as Kara here, and then we can actually change our profile picture by clicking the image right here. This allows us to either upload a new photo or just remove the current one if we wanted. We can also, within this profile bubble area, change our status on Teams. This will show up as our availability to other individuals that we have on Teams. So right now I am set to available. I can go ahead and click that and change it accordingly. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth with these just because they are pretty self-explanatory. However, there is the do not disturb status, which I will mention just because that one works a little bit differently than the rest here. With the do not disturb status, if you set it, you will no longer receive notifications from Teams. It'll essentially be muting the application. And what that means is that you could use this setting to, for example, take a short little break, or maybe if you want to take a focused hour on something and you don't want to receive any distractions from Teams, you could set that as well. So for as long as your status is set to do not disturb, you will not receive notifications from your Teams application until you go back and set it to something else, and then they'll be all there waiting for you. Another thing that you can do with this status is actually set a status message. So this is good to give context on your availability. So let's say I set my status to appear away, and I want to give a little bit more context to that. I can go ahead and set a status message, and I can say, on lunch back in 1 hour, for example. Once I do that and I type that in, I can enter in this setting right here, which is show when people message me. And what this will do if you turn it on is that if somebody were to go to message you, send you a message on Teams, they would see your status and status message appear right above the little chat box as kind of a mini notification. And that kind of brings more visibility to your status, and it lets that individual know that perhaps they should come back later or when you return if they want to reach out. You can also turn on this setting, which is clear status message after. If you can set this either to a couple of different increments of time. By default, it will be set to today, or you can set it to 4 hours, 1 hour, or even have a custom time here. And what this will do is that it'll, after whatever time you've selected, Teams will wipe this status message. So this is good if you... This is good, of course, because you don't want to forget to clear your status message, and that's just kind of one extra thing that you'd have to do. So if you turn on that clear status message setting, it'll do that for you. It's just one less thing to worry about, and you can go about your day without worrying about potentially leaving a status message on all day. If you set a status message, we can go ahead and hit done here. If you set a status message, you can see that you can actually edit it if you wanted to with the little pencil icon. So if we click that, we can edit any of the details we entered. And then we can actually delete the status message as well. So that'll manually remove it like so. And then we can go ahead and set our status back to available. One other thing that you can do in this area, if you click on your profile again, you can manage account. So if you hit manage account, you'll get to your account settings. Apologies, 1 second here. All right. So if you hit that manage account button there within your profile bubble, it'll bring up your team-wide settings. So in this area, it is divided into a number of different tabs here, and these are, of course, categories of different settings that you can adjust. If we go to the General tab, this is where we can change the way that our teams looks. So we can change the theme, as we can see right here. We have 3 different ones to select from. We have the default theme, which is the one that we are currently using right now. We have the dark theme. This is one if you're this is one is good if you happen to work in a low light environment, for example, and the white theme is a little bit too bright for you. The dark theme is a bit easier on the eyes and can work in that situation. I personally like to use this one myself for that very reason. We also have the high contrast theme, which essentially punches everything up to 11 and really gives you that very dark black background, as well as that neon sort of yellowy green highlight and the cyan for the selection. So this adds just an extra layer of readability to your team's environment for those who may need it. You can also choose to change the way that your teams appear. Now, this won't make too much sense until we actually visit the teams area, but by default, it will appear in a grid form. So each of your teams will be presented as sort of a little card or box, whereas if you select list, it will present itself in the, it actually brings us to the teams area if we switch it. So as you can see here, list form will show all of your teams and their corresponding channels as a list on the side, whereas the grid form will show them in this way as you see here. So it's just a way of displaying them, whatever works best for you visually. You can select either or there. If we visit the notifications tab here, we can actually adjust the specific types of notifications that we will receive from Teams. We can essentially control how Teams reaches out to us. So With that being said, there is this one that I do like to mention, which is the play sound for incoming calls and notifications. If you are somebody that likes that sort of auditory cue for your notifications, you can keep that on. If you don't like the sound for your notifications, you can turn this off. I do believe by default it is on, so if you're somebody that doesn't like the sound accompanied by your notifications, you'll have to visit the notifications tab of your settings to turn that off right here. We also have the ability to change the types of notifications that we get for each sort of different type of notification. So we have here notifications that'll come from the chat or from meetings, from people, or other. If we click edit, we can change that specific set of notifications. So these are notifications that we'll receive from chat. So whether they are @mentions or just regular messages or likes and reactions, we can change the type of notification for each one. So here we have on the top here, @mentions, we'll receive a banner notification and a feed notification. So let's go ahead and point out the difference between, what a banner notification is versus what a feed notification is. A banner notification will appear in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It'll appear as a little pop-up. It's kind of a little panel that'll come right over from the right-hand corner of the screen here, and it'll just display your notification within, and you can actually click that in order to bring you to the direct location of wherever that interaction took place. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't like the sort of pop-up of a banner notification, you may want to keep your notifications only to the feed. And what it means when it says only show in feed or just feed, it means that your notifications will only go to the actual notifications area of Teams, which is the activity tab right up here. This is where you will see all of your notifications, and this is where you'll be able to see anything that has sort of gone on Teams while you were since the last time you visited. So this is what it means by feed. Here's where all of your notifications will appear in your activity tab here. Let's go ahead and go back to those notification settings very quickly here. Excuse me. So I was right here, and now I changed the @mentions to only show in feed, which means anytime somebody @mentions me on Teams, that notification will only appear in my feed. I will not receive that as a banner notification anymore. So keep that in mind. You can adjust this for a bunch of different types of notifications, and they span across all of the different areas of Teams. So whether it's chats or with meetings, for example, you can always change certain ways that Teams will reach out to you to fit whatever you prefer best. We're going to exit our settings for now, and we're just going to move over to the left-hand side here within the middle of our bar, which is the search bar. In the search bar, you can use it to search for people, for files, and for messages. But you can also utilize the search bar to execute certain commands. If you type in a / into that search bar, you'll find that you'll be met with a number of different commands that you can utilize. So the commands are on the left, sort of what the name of the command, and then on the right, we have the what the command actually does. So the commands that I always like to use myself, essentially these commands will allow you to do certain things faster or just directly from the search bar. And this is just another way of kind of creating your own workflow. If you find that you do something quite a bit, and it's part of a command that can be done even faster, why not memorize that command and essentially help yourself kind of cut the time in half of doing that specific task. And the one that I like to mention is, and the one that I use myself, is the ability to change your status directly by using a command. So right now we are set to available, as you can see with the little indicated by the little green check mark there. But the commands here allow us to actually change our status directly from the search bar. So we see here there's a couple /available, /away, be right back, etc., etc. We can utilize any of these to set our status quickly. So we can either choose to click on the command itself. So if we click /away, it'll set our status to away, or we can actually just type it in if we know it already, and then just hit enter. So once we do that, it'll execute the command, and you'll notice that it tells us the status is being set to away, and it does now set our status to away right here. As you can see, we are set to away. So rather than having to click into the profile bubble and change it manually here, I can quickly just /, oops, gotta spell it right though, available, and that is a super quick way of doing that. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at this this command list here, as there might be one or two here that you will find convenient for you. Let's now go ahead and move over to the left-hand side where we have our chat. So in the chat area, you could have your one-on-one chats with other individuals, as well as your group and meeting chats. To create a new chat, you would click on the little pen and paper icon in the top right-hand corner of this panel here, and all of the chats that you are currently a part of or active in will appear within this panel down sort of in chronological order. Currently, I only actually have one chat here, but if I were to create another, for example, let's go ahead and just create another chat here. We could enter in Adele to start a chat with Adele. And if we wanted to create a group chat, we would then start to invite other individuals here. So we can invite Joni as well as Alex. So I'm now starting a group chat with Adele, Joni, and Alex, and I can go to the message box in the bottom of the screen here, and I can just start typing the message, "Hey everyone, how is everything?" So it's just a basic message that we can send, and once I've sent that message, it solidifies that chat within our area, and now Alex, Adele, and Joni, of course, have received this message, and then we can continue on the group chat as we typically would. If you're ever in a group chat and you want to rename the group chat, so right now the name of the group chat will just be the name of the individuals that are a part of that chat, but you can always click on the little pencil there to change the name of the group chat. So perhaps we can just name this one Dream Team, Dream Team, for example, and hit save. So now we've actually changed the name of the chat, and it changes the way it appears in our area right here. As you notice, these chats are organized by most recent. So the most recent interaction in a chat, that one will appear at the very top of the list. So if I were to go to this chat with Arden, for example, and just send a message, his chat will now appear at the top of the list. You can also choose to pin chats if you want to keep a chat at the very top of your list, or perhaps there's one that you visit quite frequently. You can right-click on the chat and hit pin, or you can just click on the ellipses as well. That'll bring up that same menu. Hit pin, and that'll now move that chat into your pinned area. And so now we see here we have two different sections. We have pinned and we have recent. And the great thing about the pinned area is that it's not affected by that sort of chronological order that we saw in the recent area. So you can move your chats around freely in the pinned area. I'm just going to pin this one so we get an example of it. As you can see, I've pinned both of these chats now, so I can kind of move them around freely. I can put Arden's at the top, for example, or the Dream Team at the top, and they won't be affected by that chronology that we saw earlier on. If you want to unpin a chat, let's say you're not using it very often anymore, you can just, again, right-click or hit the ellipses, and then hit unpin. Something else that you can do as well is you can pop out your chats. So if you're speaking with somebody on Teams and you want to go to another area of Teams, for example, like you want to go check on your Teams area or within the calendar section, for example, you can choose to hover over the chat and pop out the chat. There's this little button right here that is the square with the sort of diagonal arrow. If you click that, it'll pop out the chat like so. So now we have this chat as a separate window. So we could, for example, go take a look at our calendar. And we can see all of the things that we have on our calendar. And of course, if we want to maintain that chat, we've now popped it out, and we could continue, interacting within this chat as we normally would, except it's opened as a separate window. Whereas if we didn't have this popped out, we would simply have to go back to the chat area to interact within that specific chat. Once you're done with the pop-out window, you can close it, and of course, anything that you send or do in that popped-out chat will be present within the chat, in the chat area as well. Let's go ahead and move on down to our Teams area now. In the Teams area, you will have, as we sort of briefly saw earlier, you will have the list of your teams either in this view, which is the sort of boxed view that we set, or if you have it set to the list view, they will appear as a list down the left-hand side. But by default, they will appear like this. If you have a team that you're already a part of, you can, of course, click into it to take a look at all of the different sort of resources and everything that's going on within that specific team. Now, within this team, we only have actually one channel. The channels are presented right here under the channel subheading. And then above that, we actually see that we have our class team resources. And these are things like class notebook, the assignments area, grades, and insights. Previously, this used to appear as tabs within your general channel. However, that recently changed. So now all of your class resources are always listed right here for easy access. So again, we have the four default ones are class notebook, assignments, grades, and insights. And then we have the channels. And this is where all of these sort of conversations can happen, as well as if you ever need to upload any files or share any files, you can do so in the channels as well. And you can also do so within the actual class notebook, which we'll be taking a look at very shortly. But let's say we want to create a new channel. Whenever you create a new team, a default channel is created, and that is the general channel. However, if you want to create more channels, you'll have to do so manually. So if we click on the ellipses here, if we click on the ellipses here on where it says the name of the team, we can go ahead and hit Add Channel. We can name this channel, let's say, Essay Prep, for example. And we can give it a description if we wanted. And then right here, we can choose to either make this channel a standard channel or a private channel. Now, excuse me, a standard channel will be accessible to everybody on the team. So anybody who is a part of this English 101 team will have access to a channel that is a standard channel. Now, if I were to select this as a private channel, this would mean that I would have to invite specific individuals, specific students to have access to this specific channel. So if I created a private channel and I hit next, the next little screen here would be the students that I would be inviting. So maybe this channel we only want to have access by Joni and by Adele, for example. So these are the two students that are going to be accessing this channel privately, and nobody else, except for myself, of course, will be able to access that channel. And we can go ahead and hit Add, and then hit Done once they've been added. So as you can see here, we have now created a new channel called Essay Prep, and it appears within our channel section. And you can see right next to that Essay Prep channel, there is that little lock icon. And that tells us that this is a private channel, so only specific individuals actually have access to the contents, and they can actually contribute to this channel. If you ever have a private channel that you create and you want to add more individuals to it, you can click on the ellipses right next to that channel and hit add members. And that'll allow you to then add more students. Let's say Alex, for example. Oh, I think we already added Alex, actually. We'll go ahead and we'll add Al Fredrickson as well. We can go ahead and hit add and hit done or close. And now those 4 students now have access to this specific channel, whereas the rest of them do not. Now, within that channel, within any channel, you can start a new conversation or a new post by clicking on the new conversation button here. We can write something out if we wanted to, and we can then choose the little format button in the bottom of our chat box here, which is the A in that little pencil. And that can expand the chat box in order to sort of add more customization to this post. So as you can see, we can add a subject, we can add a heading, and we can even change the type of post that this is. So right now, this is just a regular conversation post, which means if I make this post, any student can, of course, or any teacher can reply and interact within that post. But if I change the type of post to announcement, you can see it presents itself a little differently. And we can even change the background of the header here to a different color, for example, as well as upload our own image if we wanted to. Now, for any type of post, you can actually control who can reply to the posts by selecting this option right here. If we click that, it'll by default be set to everyone can reply. However, you can change it to only you and moderators can reply. And we'll talk a little bit about what a moderator is within a team very shortly when we go into the Manage Team section. But essentially, this means that only you and other individuals who are owners of this team can reply. So the general members will not be able to reply to this post. They'll only be able to actually see it. We'll keep it to everyone can reply, and then we could go ahead and write out a post that we wanted. So let's go ahead and say new essay outline posted. For example, we can add a subheading, and then we can say, please review this latest essay outline. Just an example of a sample thing that you could do here, and we can even attach a file. So if we click that little paper clip right here, and we can upload either something that we already have within Teams, or we can upload from our OneDrive or device. So let's go ahead and select our OneDrive, and let's now send this pair deck slides. Let's send this PowerPoint and pretend it is that essay outline. We can go ahead and upload that. We'll just give it a second there. So once that has uploaded, we can go ahead and hit send now, which is in the bottom right-hand corner. And that has now created this new post. And it contains that file that I can then open and take a look at, as well as anybody who can view this post, they can do the exact same thing. Now, keep in mind that with every channel that you have within your team, there is the post section, which is right up here. That's where we end up by default. And then there is the files tab. In that files tab, you will find any files that have been shared within that specific channel. Now, because we shared this PowerPoint just now within that post, it is now present within the Files tab, and this is kind of an easy way both to either take a look at all the files that have been shared within a specific channel, as well as upload new files to that channel if you'd like, without having to make an entire post about them, for example. So if we wanted to, we could go ahead and click upload, and we could upload a file in the exact same way that we just did, except rather than creating a post for it, it simply gets uploaded directly to the files area. So anybody that has access to this channel, they can visit the files tab and see that file, and then, you know, interact with it and collaborate on it if they wanted to. One thing about the way that files work within your teams is that Teams, the backbone of Teams is SharePoint. So SharePoint is essentially where all of those files are stored, and that is a cloud solution for Teams. So to put it sort of simply and the easiest way to understand what SharePoint is, it is essentially your centralized area where all of the files are kept. And you can actually open up SharePoint separately. As you can see here, there is an open in SharePoint button, and that'll open up the SharePoint sort of application on the web, where you can take a look at all of the files that are available within your team. Here, we'll go ahead and close that. We can take a look at all the files that have been shared within this team. If we go to, as you can see here, we have English 101, and we're within the essay prep area of the documents library, and that means that these are all the files that have been shared within the essay prep channel. If we just click on documents right here within SharePoint, we can see now that anytime we create a new channel, a new folder within SharePoint will also be created. So we'll go ahead and open up these side by side. We have essay prep here, and then we have the essay prep channel. So as you create more channels and share more files, all of those are being stored within SharePoint, and you can actually manage those files even further directly within SharePoint. But keep in mind that essentially anything that you do within SharePoint or within Teams, these are fundamentally linked, so it'll always reflect in both. So if I were to go to the essay prep folder, for example, I'm seeing that same file that is present, of course. I could then upload a file or a folder right in the SharePoint area of essay prep, and it'll also appear within this files tab of the team because they are linked. So I could go ahead and hit upload here and upload another file, for example. And go ahead and just upload this August week 1 agenda, for example. So I've now uploaded that, and if we were to refresh the Files tab within Teams, it'll now show up, as you can see right there. So you can just think of SharePoint as that sort of cloud skeleton to your Teams. Everything that is being shared and stored within Teams is actually being stored on SharePoint. So just keep that in mind whenever you are uploading anything. But in any case, anything that you do within the files area of any channel or any team will be reflected in SharePoint and vice versa. So you don't have to worry about them not syncing up in that way because they are linked. Another thing about this is that this now enables anybody who has access to this channel, or if I was in the general channel, for example, since that is a public channel, all students and teachers within this English 101 team could then access this file. They could open it up, and then we could then all sort of collaborate and work on it together if we wanted. And that is kind of the beauty of sharing and uploading files within your team's channels. Let's go ahead and visit some of our class teams sort of resources here to take a look at what you have available to you at your disposal. We go ahead and we have the class notebook. Now, I'm not going to cover this in too much detail as this is something that is covered mostly in the Teams Education 100. However, I will go ahead and talk a little bit about how you can actually manage your class notebook settings. So here we have our class notebook. If we click on this little icon right here, we can see all of the different sections. As I mentioned earlier, you have your collaboration space, which is where you can create new sections and all of your students can kind of contribute and collaborate within that space. We have the content library where you can kind of use this area to publish content for your students to review. And then it can be used as, again, well, a literal content library. We have the teacher only section, which you can create different sections for yourself to work through as an educator, and only you have access and visibility of that section. So you can utilize that area as your own personal workspace, preparing any class materials that will later be published in the other sections. You can use the teacher only area to do that. And then we have, as you can see, a couple of different student private areas as well. We have Adele, Al, Alex, Fatima, and Joni. And these are all students that are a part of this class team. So every student will get their own private space within the class notebook. And I, as the educator, as the teacher, can visit each of their private spaces to review any of the work that they are doing. However, as students, they only actually have visibility to their own private space. They cannot, so if I were Adele, for example, I could only see my own, oh, apologies, my mouse flagging there. I can only see my own private workspace within the class notebook. I cannot see Alex's or Fatima's, for example. Those are private to them, but because I am the teacher and the educator for this class team, I can view everybody's work being done in their own little spaces there. If we visit the class notebook tab at the top here, we can actually see a couple of different ways we can edit our notebook, as well as the actual Manage Notebooks button here. If we click that, it'll open up this little settings window here, where we can change and adjust a couple of things. Right here, when you initially create a class team, you have the ability to then create what the default sections of each student's private space will be. So by default, each student will have a class notes section, a handout section, and a homework section. We can change these if we wanted. We can add a new section if we'd like as well. We can simply just, change it to whatever we want or add a new one. Let's just say new section sample, for example, and we can hit save. So once we do that, this will actually add a new section to all of the current students' private areas. So we'll go ahead and we'll visit that in just a second, but before I leave here, I do want to mention that you have the ability to lock the collaboration space as well. So if you click this, it'll lock the collaboration space, and that, if we close this now and we go back to our class notebook, this collaboration space will now be locked. So the content will be locked. It'll no longer be able to be modified by the students, of course, and you'll have to unlock the collaboration space if you want any further content to be modified or added. So keep that in mind. Perhaps if you want it to be locked for a specific amount of time, you can do so. It's kind of up to you to decide how and when to do that. The other sections of your class team are the assignments and the grades. Again, these are sections where you will either create new assignments, and you can assign them to your students, of course. And then with the grades area, you'll be able to actually give actual point grades and letter grades to the assignments. As you can see here, I only actually have one assignment within this class, and it's essay practice. And if we go to the grade section, we can see here the students are listed along the left and the assignment within the class is listed along the top. We only have the one, which is the essay practice. And as you can see here, none of the students have actually started or finished that assignment yet, as these are blank. But this is where you would visit to either review the work of the students once they've turned in an assignment. You can review it here, or you can review it in the actual assignments area. And you can see here we have three different tabs. We have the Assign tab, the Return tab, and the Drafts. In the Assign tab, we'll see any assignments that we've created, as well as the ability to actually create a new assignment by clicking Create and then hitting Assignment there. We can also create quizzes by bringing in that Microsoft Forms integration as well. So you can do that within the Assignments tab. And then within the drafts, you can see any assignments that you have created but not yet published. So you can kind of start working on creating an assignment, and if you aren't sure about certain details, you can kind of save it for later in the drafts area. Now let's go ahead and visit the calendar. So in the calendar, we have all of our current meetings, and they present themselves in the form of these little sort of lavender boxes here. we can click into any one of these to view the exact details for that specific meeting. So right here, we've clicked into this meeting that we have on Tuesday morning here, and we can see here, the actual physical location for that meeting. We can see here the actual link for the meeting, and then we can see that there's a little chat with participants button right here. If we click that chat with participants button, it'll actually bring us to wherever, either if this meeting was attached to a channel, it'll bring us to the channel post, or it'll bring us to the meeting chat if the meeting was not attached to a channel. Now, we're going to go ahead and schedule a new meeting so you kind of understand the difference between attaching a meeting to a channel versus not doing so. So in the top right-hand corner here, we have the new meeting button. If we click that, we now have the ability to create a meeting and lay out all our details. So we can say, study group 1, for example. We can add Adele. And since we've been talking about these 3 a lot today, we'll just add Adele, Alex, and Joni. We can choose when the meeting will be, so perhaps we can make it happen tomorrow from 9:30 to 10:30, for example. And then we have right here the suggested time area. This will actually be taking a look at the schedules for each of these individuals, and it'll be letting us know where they have the best free slots. So Teams is taking a look at the Teams calendar for Adele, Alex, and Joni, and it'll see where they have free slots and suggest us times based off of that. We're going to keep it on 9:30 to 10:30 though, as we do want it to be within school hours, of course. And then we have here the ability to make this a recurring meeting. If this is, for example, a study group that'll meet every week at the same time on the same day, for example, you could do that by making this a recurring meeting to happen weekly. This would save you the trouble of having to recreate this meeting every single week. It'll simply just duplicate itself on the students' calendars every week, or whatever sort of time increment you happen to select here. So we could select weekly, for example, and it'll be every Tuesday starting on the first day of the meeting, which is tomorrow, the 24th. We'll go ahead and we'll make this a one-off meeting for today. And we can now choose to attach this meeting to a channel, to a Teams channel that we have. So if we remember, we had that English 101, team, and then we had the general channel within that team. Now you're probably noticing that the essay prep channel that I created isn't listed here, and that is because you can't actually attach Teams meetings to private channels. So keep that in mind when you are creating your meeting, that it can't be attached to a private channel. It has to be a public channel, aka a channel that everybody on that team can access. So we'll go ahead and we'll select the general channel here. And this is where you would enter a location. So if your meeting was going to be happening in a physical location as well, you could enter that in here. And then in the last area, in the details, we can enter in any, context for this meeting, what's going to happen during the meeting, what should be done. We can even, put in a mini agenda in this area if we wanted, but we'll keep this blank for our purposes for now. So once we go ahead and hit send, it'll now create a new post within this channel that we have selected here of this meeting. And what that does is, it's not necessarily inviting every single person that is a part of that channel to the meeting. However, it's providing visibility that this meeting is occurring. And now everybody that is a part of that channel, regardless of whether or not they were invited in the attendee list, they'll be able to actually join the meeting directly from that channel post. So we'll just let it load there for a second, and we'll go back to our Teams area. Let's go into our English 101 team and in the general channel. And as you can see right here, we see here Kara Coleman has scheduled a meeting, study group 1, August 24th at 9:30 a.m. So now, as a student, I could then click on this. I can click on the post itself, and I can join the meeting directly from the post. Now, because I am the one that actually created this meeting, I do have the ability to edit any of the details that I wanted. If I don't need to edit anything, I can just join the meeting from here as well by hitting join right there. Now, this is something that you probably saw today as we are currently on a Teams meeting together. So that you're probably familiar with this little screen here. And this is where you will adjust your device settings. So you'll select where you want your audio to be coming out of. So of course, our computer audio. You can adjust how loud you want the meeting to be, as well as if you want to go in muted or unmuted. And that'll be this toggle right here. You can test your camera by turning on this toggle. Now for me, these things are disabled just because that is kind of how this demo account has been set up. But for you, if you have a working webcam, of course, you can toggle this on, test to see what your camera looks like. You can click on the little cog right here if you need to change any device settings specifically. So if you're using a headset, for example, and that headset has a microphone on it, you want to make sure that you're using the headset's microphone rather than perhaps your laptop's built-in microphone. So you'll want to visit your device settings, and under the microphone area, there is this drop-down menu that you can select, and you would then select the correct, microphone. So it would be the name of your headset or whatever the external microphone would be. So once you're happy with your device set, and you can also do so with the camera as well. If you have a separate sort of webcam that you've plugged into your device, you can select it from this drop-down here. So once we're happy with our device settings, we can go ahead and hit join now, and that'll bring us into the meeting. Once we are in the meeting, we can go ahead and do a couple of things. Again, this screen is probably familiar to you as it is what you're looking at right now. But in any case, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the icons in the top ribbon here. We have the chat icon, which we can hit, and that'll open up the meeting chat. In this meeting chat, I can now interact with the individuals of this meeting. I can say, hey, everyone, glad we able to get together today. I can send that message. I can also send files within this chat, within this meeting chat specifically as well. So if I click on that little paperclip and hit OneDrive, I can then attach, we'll go ahead and attach this Oceans project scoring rubric, for example. I'll attach that, I'll share that within the meeting, and I'll say, please make sure you all review this. So I've now attached a file here, and now anybody in this chat could then open up this file, and we could take a look at it together and sort of review it, as well as collaborate on it if we wanted to as well, live during the meeting. If we move over to the ellipses here, this is where we will find more actions. So a number of different things that you can do during a meeting. So there's a couple of things that I will point out. There is the ability to turn on together mode, as I mentioned in the intro. For me, that's disabled right now because this meeting needs to have more than 4 individuals in it. So if I click that, it'll bring into that together mode that we looked at during the introduction. And we can also choose to turn on live captions as well as start the recording for the meeting as well. Now, of course, you do need explicit consent if you are going to be recording any meeting. That is a given, but that is where you would start the recording right here if necessary, and the recording would then be held within the chat here. So if we started this recording and we ended it, we could then find the recording again within the chat. Another thing that we can do directly from this area here is actually start the meeting notes. So if we click meeting notes right there and we hit take notes, it'll actually open up a new window in just a second here. And now we'll be able to take notes. We'll put in August 23rd, for example, as the date. And we can then say, Adele mentioned, this we discussed this and decided to, for example, just take any meeting notes, document anything that goes on within the meeting that is of importance, and you can kind of keep a paper trail for that meeting right here, essentially. So now anybody can contribute to the meeting notes, anybody that is a part of the meeting, and you can always come back and visit the meeting notes if, for example, we go to our general channel. We see here that study group 1, that channel meeting is actually going on right now for 3.5 minutes. And we can actually see under this post any messages that are being sent within that that chat there. So we have here the that "Hey everyone" message that I sent. We also have the file that I also sent within that chat during the meeting as well as the ability to see that meeting notes were created too. As you can see here, it says created meeting notes, and we could click show notes in full screen to then bring up those notes. Or alternatively, we can visit the tab at the top of the channel, as it has now created a meeting notes tab for us to take a look at the specific notes that were taken for that meeting. And you'll notice that on the side here, it says study group 1. If you have more channel meetings in the future, it will then create separate sections in this area where you can then visit each one to see the meeting notes for each meeting that occurred in the channel. And that is kind of a really important thing to note in terms of the post-meeting experience, is that you can always visit the channel that the meeting was posted in. You can visit the actual meeting post and see all of the messages that were sent during that meeting, as well as any other resources that were shared, things like any files or even the meeting notes, for example, as well as the things like being able to present your PowerPoint, as I mentioned as well, and also turning on the whiteboard. So if we were to click whiteboard right here, and that is in the share content button. Oh, it appears it's not. Oh, I believe it's not working for me because there's no other person in this meeting. But in any case, if you were to share your screen and hit whiteboard there, it would then open up that whiteboard for everybody in the meeting, and we could then collaborate and annotate on that whiteboard sort of together. And then after the meeting has concluded, a whiteboard tab will also be created within this channel that we can then visit pretty much identically to the meeting notes, and we could see anything that sort of went on and anything that was contributed to that whiteboard during the meeting. So all of these things are always accessible even after the meeting concludes, and also even before the meeting starts. So if we scheduled this meeting, for example, and we wanted to visit this post and perhaps attach an agenda for our meeting individuals to take a look at before the meeting starts, we could actually do that. So all of those meeting resources, the meeting notes, the chat, the whiteboard, anything that was sent is always present within the initial meeting post. And you can always revisit that a month or a week or however long after the meeting has concluded, and it helps you maintain context and information for all meetings that you have. And with that being said, that does bring us to the end of our content. I do see that we are a couple of minutes over time, and I do apologize for that. I did just want to make sure that we got all of that out. So without further ado, thank you everybody for joining. I will go ahead and take a look and see if there were any questions left in the chat there.
Doesn't seem to be there, Tino. Our group of people have been pretty quiet, but on behalf of the LEARNEast team and all our participants, I want to thank Tino for taking time to share with us today. A reminder to everyone, please click on the link in the chat to be eligible to win one of several door prizes at this afternoon's closing session. You guys can all join us at 3:45 to find out if you're a lucky winner. There's lots of great prizes. The link for the closing session is posted on the LEARNEast website. So thanks for everyone for joining us today, and hopefully I'll see you guys at our sessions this afternoon. We start back up at 1 p.m. Thanks a lot, Tino.
Perfect. Thank you everybody for joining, and have a great rest of the day, everybody.